on health and wellness as an entrepreneur. In this episode, Mike will walk us through what it really means to take your health seriously and why it matters so much for the long game of building and sustaining a business. After this series, we're shifting into a new format where Mike will be interviewing guests from all fields of work, bringing in fresh perspectives and real-world insights from all across industries. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, shoot an email to the email in the show notes. All right, welcome back to the Mike Brunick Show, where we are running all things entrepreneurship, business leadership, work-life balance, and more through the lens of a business leader, entrepreneur, hobbyist, and relevant to today's conversation, a CrossFit instructor, macro tracker, and overall student of personal health and performance. Mike, thanks for being here with us.
Well, thanks, Bryla. Thanks for that introduction. That makes me sound like I do a lot of things.
Well, you do. But I'm really looking forward to today's episode because I think when people talk about entrepreneurship and business leadership, they typically focus on revenue, strategy, growth, and how to be a good leader, which are all really, relevant things in that area. But I don't think we talk enough about the physical toll that a business can take on its leaders. So I was hoping you could walk us through kind of like what it looks like day to day to be a business leader, to be an entrepreneur, to be an executive, and how time can sometimes get the best of you in that area. And, the first thing to go when stuff is hitting the fan could be, your physical health.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. We spend most of our time at Valor Advisors talking to executives and business owners about revenue growth and about leadership challenges. And about making their companies work better or be more profitable. One of the things that I notice, especially, but we notice as a team, is that a lot of these folks, as you said, are prioritizing the health of their business, prioritizing maybe the development of their people. They're all great people. There's only so many hours in a day, and people that are serious about what it is they're working on. Quite often, one of the things that suffers is their personal health. And people, I think, downplay or underestimate the impact of declines in personal health on the success of the business and on their abilities as a leader.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the lifestyle that comes with being a business leader, that comes with being an entrepreneur, that really contributes to the decline of the health of one of those leaders?
Yeah, as a business coach, an executive coach, one of the things we work with a lot of people on is time management. And generally, executives and business owners and entrepreneurs are busy people. It's not unusual to talk to somebody that hasn't made it home for dinner in 2 years, or who hasn't had a weekend off, or hasn't taken their family on vacation in a long time. So, you end up with this lifestyle where you're kind of always working. And in that environment, the idea of taking time to take care of yourself feels like while people will intellectually say, yeah, I know I need to, I should probably work out, I should probably go for a walk, I should probably, so one of the big problems is they just find that to be a low priority and just never get time for that. The other maybe obvious bit is, if you're always working, you're grabbing meals on the go, you're grabbing fast food, you're, out to dinner with clients one night, and you're up early the next morning with a cup of coffee and a muffin because you've got a plant tour, or you got to get on a flight, or whatever your world is. You end up making a lot of really bad food and alcohol choices. And then the last piece is the sleep and recovery. So the other type of executive would be the classic alpha male or alpha female who says, all right, well, I get my 45 minutes on the treadmill every day, come hell or high water. And because they don't take time off from work or fit that in particularly well, what gives is recovery time or sleep. And so I'm working on 5 hours of sleep because I had to get up and run on the treadmill. They got their workout in, made their legs stronger, but the impact on their overall health is pretty negative.
Yeah, I Was reading earlier a study by the National Library of Medicine that correlates entrepreneurship and obesity. And it seems like, looking from the outside, like business leaders are able to, juggle it all. They can manage a billion things all at once, and everybody's calling them all the time with another fire to put out. And it just, it seems like they're able to do it. But I do think, like, at least in my own personal experience, if there's a fire going on, the last thing I'm thinking about is going down to the gym and lifting weights or going for a run or making dinner. It's just easier to DoorDash. So I just want to, I want to ask you, is there a mentality there also, besides all the outside factors, that are the core of why entrepreneurs are so quick to neglect their own personal health?
Yeah, you asked about mentality. The mentality that works for me, that works for a lot of my clients, is one I heard first 25 years ago. I had an opportunity to run a leadership training academy with a mentor of mine and learn sort of at his right hand. And he introduced me to something. I don't know if he invented it. I haven't seen it anywhere else, but maybe he read it somewhere. But he introduced me to this thing called a MEPS triangle, sort of a memorable way to think about it. And his point was that as leaders, our job is to make an emotional impact on others, and that's the E in MEPS. So if you think of a triangle with the letter E in the middle, the three legs of the triangle are the M and the P and the S. And his point was that in order to maximize your ability to make an emotional impact on others, you have to do your mental, physical, and spiritual homework every day. That you have to make sure you keep those things in balance and that you have a strong foundation. I like to think of the MEPS triangle maybe more like a three-legged stool where, I have this stool that I've built and I stand on it to elevate others, or I, provide it to others for them to stand on to reach their goals, or to sit on and rest when they need that. So I have this three-legged stool, and if any of the legs of the stool are out of balance with the others, or if they're all just really small, then the stool doesn't become very useful. And so you think about doing your mental homework, keeping your mind sharp and your professional reading and all of that. You think about your spiritual homework, whether that was going to church or, doing yoga or meditating or however it is that you find a spiritual connection. And then the physical piece is important. And the mindset that I try to give to my executive coaching clients is that your job requires you to be present and alert and active. And if you're neglecting your physical health, it does impact your ability to make an emotional impact on others, to truly lead your team. And so it's your job as a leader to be available. It is your job to be alert. It is your job to be healthy. And it's your job to provide a good example. And you can't do any of that if you're fat and your head's coming forward and you're taking little baby steps and you're having a hard time getting around and you're wheezing and your immune system's terrible and you're catching everything that goes around the office. There's all of these downstream impacts to you not taking care of and being aware of your physical health.
That's a great illustration. The stool, that's amazing. I would love to know, like, in your opinion, so all of those pillars of that stool have equal probably importance, but if one executive or one business leader or an entrepreneur were to say, I need to start, but I have no idea which one to prioritize first, would you, steer them in the direction of spiritual, mental, or physical fitness?
Well, I mean, sticking with the reason I like the stool as a visual is if you have a three-legged stool and you've got, two legs that are, 2 feet long and one leg that's only 6 inches long, it's not much of a stool. It falls over. It sits at an angle. So the point is balance. The point is to balance your mental, physical, and spiritual self in order to be able to provide that emotional platform for others. The geometry majors out there will tell us that the way you maximize the area of a triangle is to have all three sides be the same. So you don't end up with this skinny little triangle or this flat triangle. You end up with this equilateral triangle. So kind of the same point is to keep them in balance in order to maximize your ability to impact others emotionally. So I don't tell people to start in one place and at the exclusion of the others. I do find a lot of executives do a pretty good job with their mental health. They do their professional reading. They're up on the latest in their trends in their industry. That's one where I tend to find that people aren't necessarily neglecting as much as spiritual and physical. Physical is the one that, if you ask people to rate themselves on those three areas on a hypothetical scale of 1 to 10, and not giving them any coaching on what does 1 mean, what does 10 mean, what does 5, what does 7, just on your own. Where do you think you are? Most of them give themselves pretty poor grades. They're aware that their physical self is not as strong as their spiritual and mental selves.
It's an interesting observation. This week, we're starting up a 3-part series